Hello, and welcome back to another episode. It's been a while, it's been a few weeks, getting close to a month since I last filmed a 2-camera video for this YouTube channel. And that's because it's been a heck of a few weeks. Those of you who are on the Discord, those of you who follow my other doings on Archeosoup, for example, will have a bit more of a sense of what's been happening. But basically, I was hospitalised 3 and a bit weeks ago, and or 3 and a bit weekends ago, and I've been recovering ever since. And I figured before I move on and get back fully into the swing of things, for example, talking about the new computer game storage solution that we've implemented in the living room, I thought that today was a good opportunity just to sit down, take stock, document, and I suppose share what it is that happened, what actually happened to me a few weeks ago. And actually, today's quite a good day to do that, because I've just been to the GP to have some blood taken, the doctor's surgery, as part of the follow-up from that hospitalisation. And then this afternoon, 4 o'clock, I have another follow-up appointment. So yeah, today is the day, and I'm going to try and use language that isn't too visceral or too explicit in terms of what I'm describing, but I'm going to be talking about the bathroom, the loo, the toilet, and I'll be talking around it. So hopefully you'll get a sense of what happened without actually having to visualize exactly what happened. But it was Tuesday, so 3 weekends and 4 or 5 days ago, on Tuesday, that I noticed something. I went to the bathroom, and there was red where there shouldn't have been red, shall we say. And there was a slight sort of shotgun effect. And we don't often do this in this household, but I did call Mrs. Soup and said, should I be concerned about this? And she goes, take a photo. So now I do have several photos on my phone that will never be shared publicly, and don't worry, they're not going to make it into the edit of this video. In fact, I may delete them. It depends, I guess, on what the feedback today is. Anyway, took a photo, and we called 111. That's the sort of the non-emergency National Health Service line. It helps them to triage people if people may need to go to hospital and don't realise it, or people who think they need to go to hospital and really don't have to. They get to sort of to have that first contact with you, and so we called. They referred me to a gastro specialist, a sort of a gastrointestinal specialist, who then referred me to a out-of-hours GP service called GP's North. And ultimately, what they decided was that I probably had some sort of food poisoning, some sort of something had disagreed with me, and it should pass over the course of a couple of days. No pun intended there. But it didn't pass. Instead, what happened was it got momentarily better. I still felt uneasy inside, a little bit gurgly. I still wasn't particularly happy in terms of when I did go to the loo. But there was no red, shall we say, until suddenly there was red, and everything was sort of maroon, and it was all just a bit sort of like, ooh, this isn't going away. And so again we called 111, and again the conclusion was, no, this is just the end of an infection. You should be fine. It'll be fine. So that was on Thursday, Friday. But just in case, I did call my GP, and they said, come and get the means by which we may take a sample. Again, I'm trying to use my language very carefully here, and we'll do that. We'll have a look on Tuesday, because we're going into a bank holiday weekend. So Monday they wouldn't be open, and again, nothing to worry about. Not at your age, you'll be fine. So I thought, okay, fair enough. I'll deliberately, I'll choose to trust you. That's what I'm going to do. As much as I could, because I'm such a natural worrier, and that's part of the problem actually, but we'll come back to that in just a second. And so we went through into Saturday very much with the same sort of mindset. We'll wait and see what happens. We'll wait for this this test on Tuesday, and I was starting to feel a bit better. I was less gurgly, less crampy. I felt well enough to actually even have a mild curry that evening. Our friend Ruth came over. We all decided to have a takeaway, and then on Sunday morning, I woke feeling very ill. I was very windy. I was very, again, gurgly, a little bit sort of uncomfortable no matter what position I was lying in. And I just kept on going to the bathroom. Initially, it was, it was red looseness. So I thought, okay, maybe the curry didn't agree with me. Maybe maybe the takeaway wasn't quite cooked properly, or maybe it was just a bit too spicy for me at the moment. Who knows? But even though it was a mild curry, it was a Rogan Josh, I think, relatively mild. I thought, okay, let's just get this. This happens sometimes when you eat a curry anyway. It'll be fine. Well, except the colour. But it didn't stop, and I kept on going back to the bathroom with increasing frequency. And what was happening was I was just losing blood. Eventually, I was just losing blood. And the strangest thing happened, where I was in the bathroom, feeling very sort of, I remember resting my hands on my knees, feeling very sort of woozy, and the room was spinning, and starting to get sort of slight cold sweats. And actually, even thinking about it makes me quite anxious, actually. Slight cold sweats. And I just suddenly started to become aware of my body and my mind being out of sync. I felt this sort of strange sense where inside my brain, inside my mind, I was present and correct. I was there, but I was losing speed in my hands and arms. I was losing, obviously, a sense of balance. I was losing speech. I was becoming much more sort of slurred and blurry, and everything was becoming a bit more ooh kind of thing. But internally, I was still me. I was still fine, and I was going, I need to stop losing blood. I need to stop losing blood. I think what's happening is I've just lost too much blood. Too many bloods have left me. At that point, I sort of stood up, and at this point, Mrs. Soup was going back and forth with the 111 people, saying, look, things have got worse. What should we do? She'd gone downstairs briefly just to check on Indy, the dog, as well. And I sort of went to the bathroom door. I just sort of remember just shouting, Mrs. Soup. Obviously, I shouted her name, Mrs. Soup. Help me! Help! I just remember the shouting help 2 or 3 times, almost falling over, and then going back to the bathroom, sitting down again. She runs upstairs. At that point, I'm losing more blood and more blood and more blood, and she's just looking at me. She looked at me like she was genuinely terrified. She said I looked grey in the face. I'd lost all colour in my lips. They were completely white. I knew it must have been bad because of how she looked at me. And it wasn't because she was looking at her husband in a less than dignified situation. It was because it was just horrible. At that point, I sort of went across the landing and laid on our bed briefly, and ended up getting blood on the bed. That made me feel a bit better though, lying sideways. And that's probably because some blood went into my head briefly. But then the moment I sat up again, the moment I went back to the bathroom, I was just going down and down. Now at that point, we were waiting on a call back from 111, which wouldn't actually happen until 4 o'clock. That's not their fault. It's because of how we described what was happening. They didn't think it was urgent. But it really became seriously clear, seriously in Mrs. Soup's words, seriously fucking clear that I needed to go to hospital. So somehow we got me fully dressed. I got down the stairs without falling over. She manoeuvred the car, got the dog in the back of the car. I was leaning on the bin, trying not to be sick, because I felt utterly awful. And by this point, I was just constantly sweating. It was as if I was in a shower. I was sweating so much. I've never sweated so much, even in the hottest of days. And it's because my entire body was just freaking out. Seemingly, blood was being sent to central organs, and the rest of me was just, having a biological freak out. In the car, I felt a bit better. Thankfully, there was no more blood in the car, which is good. But by the time we got to the hospital, I couldn't stand up. So Mrs. Soup went and got a wheelchair. We went into A&E, and there was about 25 people in there at the time. The queue was a bit of a hassle. There was like a wee queue, maybe 4 people who were waiting for initial triage before they would be sat down in the waiting room to go into proper triage before then their treatment would be allotted to them. So initial triage, I remember being, wow, God, it was horrible. It was really horrible, actually. I remember I was in this wheelchair, and she was behind me, and I just remember just everything in me just wanted to lie down. I wanted just to be on the floor and lying down. And there was actually a physical, almost like a pain right up through my body, which I think it was blood loss. I think it was a lack of blood to organs. Everything was just sort of going. It felt like pins and needles, actually, which is a lack of blood, isn't it? It's when you sort of cut off blood to your fingers or to your toes or something, isn't it? Or to your arm. But it was all up inside me. It was all through me, and I was like, no, I know. And I by then I really wasn't with it. It was as though I was drunk. By then I was starting to really feel as though I was just, draining. And I just remember struggling with it. No, I just need to lie down. Just need to lie down. And she was like, no, because she knew if I lay down, that would be much more of a hassle to get me back in the chair. And she was just holding. I remember her hand on my shoulder, just holding me here. And I was just, no. And then we got to the triage desk. She was trying to give them information because I hadn't actually been to this hospital before. I've been to other hospitals in the trust before, but not this one. I was giving the other triage nurse a roundup of what had happened to me and how it had happened fairly well, because by this point, because of all the phone calls we'd done, we had the story down, on the Tuesday, on the Thursday, on the... but she could tell I wasn't well. She was like, you're not very well at all, are you, love? And I was like, no, I don't think I am. I don't think I'm very well at all. By this time, my t-shirt was just soaked, like it felt like ice water, just yeah. And we went and sat down in bay 23. I remember that distinctly, just going, oh, look, 23. And I was starting to feel a bit better. I'd gone through that initial phase of wanting to lie down, although that would come and go. So I was sort of a bit more comfortable on this wheelchair, just sort of with my eyes sort of half open, sweating profusely. And then the main triage person came through. This lovely guy. I think he was from Scotland. I think he might have been from Edinburgh. But again, I can't really fully remember. We went straight into the triage room, and he just goes, guess what, mate? Now these people are going to absolutely hate me and hate you because you've skipped the queue. Aren't you lucky? I was like, I don't feel very lucky. But we went into the room, and he did. It was a matter of seconds. He looked at me, asked some questions of Mrs. Soup, asked me some questions, and I went, I think it might be the curry I had last night. And he was like, no, mate, this is not the curry that you like. This is not the curry. Picked up the phone, and I think he said something like, prep emergency, we have a guy with a GI bleed, gastrointestinal bleed, intestinal bleed. And at that point, I remember Mrs. Soup jumped. She sort of literally was like, was horrified at what he said. And he said, right, we're coming through. And it felt like, because I was literally sort of not, I was almost fully unconscious. It felt like a stage opened. It felt like the walls just, and suddenly I was just on this other ward, the resuscitation ward. I think basically there was just a double door. So on the other side of the triage room, so you can just go straight through. But it felt like I was in a stage production. I was like, whoa. And then he goes, right, I'm going to need you to get onto this bed now. And so I remember looking at the bed and then looking at my feet and then sort of I really was trying to move my feet. They weren't moving. And he goes, okay, stay still. He comes around behind me, helps me up, helps me onto the bed. And then they all started working on me, the resus team. They put a cannula in my hand, a cannula in my arm. I really didn't like the idea, but thankfully, as you know, as much as I hate needles, people have always said, look, when you need a cannula, you don't care. You just don't care. And it wasn't that I didn't care. I definitely was like, I remember going because I was trying to sort of distract myself, even though I was not fully conscious. And he goes, you've done very well. Don't worry. It's all done. I remember going, oh, thank goodness. He goes, now just one for the arm. I was like, oh, no. And he goes, yes, but you need it. You'll die. I was like, fine. I would rather not. And he goes, no, I know. And so he keeps on going. And I kept asking people questions. I was like, what does that do? And they're like, this monitors your heart rate. Oh, what does that? And then again, I wasn't with it. And I just remember two things happened that were quite amusing. Well, in addition to that, in this life-threatening situation. Number one, someone said, a junior doctor said, can we get him set up, please? And we knew he was a junior doctor because it's that time of year. They've just come into the hospital. And I don't think you're meant to know. I don't think, you're meant to, as a patient, as a punter, meant to fully know. But obviously, Mrs. Soup works at a hospital. So we know that, we know when this stuff is happening. And apparently Mrs. Soup saw the nurse who was monitoring my blood pressure just look at the doctor like, are you stupid? Because if I'd sat up, I might have just gone completely unconscious, or I might have died. So she was like, no, we're going to raise his legs. So they tipped the bed, so my feet were in the air. I sort of felt the motion. I sort of felt like I was like, oh, and then blood was going back towards my head. That vaguely helped. But the second thing that was kind of amusing that I remember distinctly was someone saying, can we get his blood pressure? And the nurse who was monitoring my arm said, we cannot. He hasn't got any blood pressure. There's nothing there. So again, they started freaking out. Apparently, according to the gastrointestinal specialist, I gave the resus team a scare. Because then they rushed me through into the main resus ward. So I was initially in a bay, and then I went into the emergency room or whatever it might be called, resus 1 or whatever. And they gave me a huge bag of saline solution just to give me some bodily fluids again, which worked quite quickly actually. And then also the cannula helped with that, because it was just a case of they popped it on, and within what felt like a few minutes, what might have been longer, it's hard to know the time really, I started to wake up again. My eyelids felt lighter. I could sort of I was vaguely more aware of what was going on around me. I was lying down. There was a monitoring machine above me. There was lots of stuff happening, but they put like stickers and things all over me to sort of monitor heart rate and bioelectrical stuff. But I very quickly started to feel a bit better, and I wanted to sit up, and they were like, no, stay down. And from then, I think Mrs. Soup started to feel a bit better when it was clear that I wasn't fading anymore. I was actually feeling better. I didn't actually have a blood transfusion. I did. It was just saline solution, and also was it Transipacic, something acid. It was a blood thickener that they gave me as well via my cannula that helped stop the bleeding. at the very least give my insides a chance to heal over, not just be constantly losing blood. And from there, it was relatively straightforward. Didn't really have any more medical intervention other than to be monitored. So overnight, I stayed on the ward, and was monitored by some lovely, wonderful professional people who looked after me all night. Blood pressure every few hours, blood sugars every now and then. But basically, the next morning, the consultant confirmed what he had suspected that afternoon, and that was that I'd had, I think it's called diverticular. Diverticular. I'll put it on screen. Disease. Basically, it's something where he described it as though you squeeze a balloon animal, and then where you squeeze it between the points of your fingers, maybe like a bit of the balloon expands into its own little pocket, and that pocket becomes thin enough to either bleed or to actually tear. And essentially my guts had just been sort of squeezed and squashed over the years by stress. He reckoned anyone under the age of sort of 60 with this condition, he tends to find has had an interesting childhood, a deeply traumatic childhood, which I have had. I've talked about it a little bit on, I've hinted at it on this YouTube channel before, and that's what it was. Apparently, it's was it Philip, not Pullman, Larkin, writ large. Your parents fuck you up. They do. In this instance, they. I'd been so stressed as a child and throughout my young adulthood that I developed the guts of a 60-year-old. He said it was probably a self-sealing incident. It was probably going to be probably no surgery required. At one point they were going to do an exam with a camera, but they decided that the risk reward wasn't worth it, because there's always a risk of doing further damage. And then they let me go the following afternoon. They confirmed my blood count was on its way up. It was very much lower than it should be. And that's part of what today's taking of blood was about, just to confirm where my blood count is now. And I've spent the past couple of weeks recovering, sleeping more than I normally do. Like yesterday, I had a doze with the dog, for example, in the afternoon. Some episodes of lightheadedness, sometimes just going very pale in the face when I stand up too quickly, this kind of thing. But generally every day getting better and improving. And that really reached a bit of a zenith point with my birthday on Sunday. Had wonderful fun at some local arcades, a bowling alley. Folks from the Discord got me a real care package, which initially was because I've been to hospital, but then sort of morphed into like a birthday thing. One of which is this floating lamp here. It's absolutely fantastic. I don't know if that's going to be the final location of it, but I absolutely love this lamp. It's basically being suspended by a magnet, and it's just so clever. Cylon on Discord decided that this would be the thing to help me recover, and it's certainly brought a smile to my face. And aside from getting lovely things, you can really hear that now squealing away. Hang on, let's put that back. That's better. Aside from getting lovely things and lovely messages from people, I'm still in the process of really understanding what this means for me, because first of all, I have to lessen my stress levels. I have to continue improving my general health, but also as well, I think I need to really focus on what's important, because I very nearly wasn't here a few weeks ago, and I think that means I need to stop engaging with fools and professional arseholes on Twitter. Some of them are archaeological arseholes, in fact. I need to probably pursue those creative and fun and interesting projects that I've always been wanting to crystallize, but never quite had time to do. And I need to be living more in the moment and a little less in like a projected sort of future where everything's gone wrong, but rather just be grateful for being here and keep on working to make the future better. And that starts with my mental health, with my physical health, with my stress levels, I think, definitely. But so, for example, I mean, I'm an archaeologist. I love Norse culture and Viking stuff. But I think one of the things that I need to do is re-embrace the telling of stories about the past in an exciting way, rather than worrying about whether or not I'm telling a decent story or whether or not the video I'm working on is any good, and B, engaging with the white supremacist pricks who want to sort of hijack that stuff. Just do and tell and share fun, exciting, interesting things. Whereas I've been getting very wrapped up in the niggles, in the worry, in the stress, and that literally nearly killed me. So it's going to be good. This requirement for a life audit, for a reassessment of work-life balance and priorities, but also a very deliberate, conscious pursuit of one of the really good exercises I heard once about trying to live the life you want to live is to think about what will people say at your funeral. And I don't want people to say, well, he killed himself with by worrying about people and problems and ideas that were unsolvable, that were other people's problems. I want people to talk about fun, happiness, life, creativity, cool thoughts and ideas, So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. This is what happened, and next week's video, I'm going to share with you the new computer game storage solution. It's some drawers, but they work for reasons that I'll explain. Until then, guys, do take care. I'll take care. Bye-bye.